Today is May the 22nd, 2021, and we're here with Mom, Vivian DeBaets, who is going to remember her childhood years and growing up and what made her a wonderful mother and person. And also, by the way, today is Al's 94th birthday. Hooray!
Yeah, happy birthday.
Sounds good. And then I just chime in when there's.
You just asked the question, so you get
I
Mom.
just move it along.
Okay, the prayer to the Holy Spirit. Come, Holy Spirit, fill the hearts of thy faithful, and enkindle in them the fire of thy love. Send forth thy Spirit, and they shall be created, and thou shalt renew the faces of the earth. Let us pray. O God, who instructeth the hearts of thy faithful by the light of the Holy Spirit, grant us that same Spirit to truly be wise and ever to rejoice in his consolation. Through Christ our Lord. Amen.
Tell us all about yourself, starting with your name, where you were born, and the first childhood memory you can recall. So start with your name.
Okay. I'm Vivian Rowe DeBaets. I was born in Spring Hill, Minnesota.
What do you remember about Spring Hill, Minnesota?
Okay, so it was a Catholic community out in that area in Stearns County. And they came from Germany. And they worked hard, mostly on farms, for a living, and they were trying to be faithful Catholics. And our language was German, so I recall first speaking in German. And my parents had like a general mercantile store, and we lived upstairs, and I was born upstairs there, August 21st, 1929. And also my brother, 2 years later, Baldwin. His birthday was June 6, 1931. So our childhood was there, growing up, the store, and later on my parents built a dance hall, and they had like a live band orchestra Saturday night. I thought that was really fun and joy. I could see the couples before I had to go to bed at night. And it was fun watching them and seeing them dressed up and having such a good time. I had some nice girlfriends, and I thought it was a good place to be growing up. And I was baptized there too, at St. Michael's.
How many brothers and sisters did you have? And could you tell us their names and their ages in relation to you?
Well, my oldest one was a brother. He was named Urban, and he was born November 15th, 1925. And he was born while parents were on the farm in Spring Hill. That's where my parents lived after they were married, on that farm. And then my sister Dolores was born there also, December 30th, 1926. And then I was the next one. And then I already told you about my brother Baldwin, who was also born in the house above the general store. And then Marilyn, who was born in St. Cloud, hospital. October 4th, 1935. And then my brother Vincent Laubach, who was born in New Munich, Minnesota, April 22nd, 1939. That makes all 6 of us, right?
Great. Which sibling would you say you were the closest to? Not only in age, but maybe that you did activities, hung out with the most?
Yeah. Well, after I was born, you know, in Minnesota, I was 6, so I recall I wanted to go to school. At that time, we had a one-room school, 1st through the 8th grade. And I think I wanted to be at school with my older brother and sister. I don't know if they allowed me to or not. But I began school there only for maybe a few months because then we moved. But as I got older, my older sister and I were very close. She was a very good sister, and she wanted me to be always close to the Lord and help me out even when I went away to school financially. And so I'm very fortunate I had her as sister. Later on, she became a nun. I was Sister Lucia of the Immaculate Heart of Mary.
Can you tell the story back in Minnesota when you and Sister Lucia were little girls going to school, but something happened on the way to school?
This is one time when we were in Minnesota a short time living with my aunt and uncle on the farm, and it was early spring, and we walked across the field, I guess, instead of the regular road. And so because it was wet, we were going under and under. And I thought, you know, I'd go under and die or something. But we finally got out, but then my older cousin went home to help get relief, maybe shovels or what. But by the time she got back, we were out. And of course, we were very thankful to be out of that mud. And we had to go home and get cleaned up. When we went to the school, the teacher didn't believe us. Oh, and that school that they went to on the farm was also a one-room school, grades 1 through 8th.
And
Yeah, then I think I told you the teacher didn't believe us because that sort of sounded like a tale, huh?
yeah. And can you also tell us about your brother Urban then, who later became Father Barnabas, what he would do? Maybe it was in Munich, Minnesota, to help get food for the family?
Oh, yeah, well, maybe more as a sport in Munich. I guess they had to walk a little ways to, I'm not sure, lake or river. But he had a BB gun and maybe shot pheasants or something. And anyway, that's just a little side story, so.
And then from Minnesota, eventually your family moved to California. Tell us about your time in California, when you first moved here, what you experienced, how old you were, anything you can remember.
Well, that experience, just leaving Minnesota, if my older brother wrote the highlights of our family. So, like I said before, I went to school only a very short time in Spring Hill, Minnesota, and I'm sure everything was in German because that's the language I grew up with after I was born. And we lived in several other places before we finally left Minnesota, which was December 8th, 1935. And that's the worst time to travel in the winter, but my dad took the southern route, and my aunt and uncle in Bellflower, we arrived about December 8th, and we stayed a few days and rented a house in Fullerton, California. My first impression of coming to California was all the beauty and the smell of the orange blossoms. I can still smell them. And it was coming like a new country from a tiny little village in Spring Hill, Minnesota. But our parents wouldn't speak German to us anymore. They wanted us to be good citizens of America. And I don't recall really difficulty in speaking entirely in English. And we might have gone back another time. I have to read all my notes carefully from Barnabas, but I recall making my first Holy Communion at St. Bernard's Church in Bellflower, California. And the sisters came evidently from Long Beach for catechism classes or whatever. And they must have prepared us well, because we knew we were actually receiving the body and blood of Christ. And that was a great moment in my life. And we went back to Minnesota again. And these were hard, difficult economic times. So my dad had to go wherever he could get employed. So then when we were in California again, we lived on it was called, I think the address 813 Lorena. And as I recall, that was the only grade I went through in the elementary school where I stayed for 1 year. And I was blessed with a very good teacher who expected the best, you would perform well because you wanted to learn. At least for me, she encouraged me to learn, and I wanted to get 100 in all my papers. And instead of giving candy or something as a gift, because, you did well, she gave me a picture of 2 girls in a rope or something, and they called it horsey. And I kept that through all the years. Oh, and by the way, which made me think, on our way to first time from Minnesota, California, we stopped somewhere maybe around for St. Nicholas Day, December, and she bought me a cedar chest, a real small, which I kept through all the years.
And was that your mother who brought you the cedar chest for St. Nicholas Day?
Or maybe it was also a combination for Christmas. And I held that in great love, that was, that she thought of me, and got that. And my daughter, Regina, has it now.
So that was all the way from 1935
Yes.
on your journey from Minnesota with your family in the middle of the winter to California, and when your sister Marilyn was just born a few months earlier.
Yeah.
So that was quite a journey.
Yeah. Well, you can see my dad was quite adventurous. Maybe he wasn't always prudent, but he did his best to get employment.
So when your family did settle somewhat permanently That was in Downey, California?
Yes.
And the grade that you talked about so fondly, your teacher, was that third grade?
Yes, and that was the Downey, they called it grammar school at that time. Oh, and I must tell you, so that house that I was talking about in the third grade, it was just a mere home, but we had love, and my parents tried to raise us as have a good character, a good Catholic, and be clean, and across the street was a girl who lived in a mansion. Her grandfather invented asbestos, so they were extremely wealthy. And so Nancy and I met each other, and we were on a dirt road, and so this would be behind their mansion. And we were about the same age, and her family just loved me, and I was like part of their family. And when she came to visit us, she would see my mother scrubbing the floor, and they had servants, and she thought she would like to be more like a normal family. So I would say she was one of my best friends, but then we moved and everything. So I was very happy that I had a friend like that. Oh, and they built the Catholic Church in Downey, Our Lady Perpetual Help. Her grandparents did. They paid for the building it. Of course, the people after that, they had to pay to keep it up. Well, and when Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs first came out, we drove there to the theater in Hollywood, the first showing.
And was that with your friend Nancy that you went
Yes.
to see Snow White and the Seven
Yeah.
Dwarfs?
Oh, yeah, their home, the mansion, oh my God. They had servants, they had chauffeurs, and they had another house, a summer house, and a pool. So, but she loved our family because she thought our family was more normal. Unfortunately, her dad was smoking some years later, and he was smoking when he went to bed, and he died of smoking suffocation, I guess. And then they had to move, and they moved to LA around the Wilshire district. And some years later, I took a bus and stayed with them maybe for about a week at their home there.
At this same time, about when you were in third grade in Downey, what type of work or business did your family?
Oh, yes. My dad, he was independent, and he got his bakery goods in L.A. He had a bakery panel truck. He would place an order and then pick up the order very early in the morning. Oh, and then, so here I was 8 years old in the third grade. And he said, Vivian, would you like to sell these donuts? I'll sell to you wholesale, and then you can make a profit. So I had a beautiful wicker basket. I went to the neighborhood. I think they all bought donuts for me. So I made a profit. I was already an entrepreneur, right? And so I thought that was great, that I was earning money.
That's great.
At
Leading
8
the way
years-
for Girl Scout cookies selling.
Yeah. I couldn't afford, I guess, the uniform to be. Maybe they thought I was a Girl Scout, but I don't think we could even afford the uniform. So I thought that was pretty great, doing that.
And as a little girl, do you recall performing at the Pomona Fair?
Oh, yeah,
and could you tell us
way
about
back.
that?
Our first home in Fullerton and then Pomona. Somehow I must have gotten with other girls' little classes, and we performed at the LA County Fair, which was in Pomona. 3 little kittens who lost their mittens. And by the way, my parents, did they have rabbits, chickens? If I read my brother's notes, and they won first prize at the county fair. I think I know they raised chickens and maybe rabbits, but we didn't live in Pomona very long. And you have that little song I told you about, and we had a radio, and they would announce birthdays. So I heard on the radio they played for me my birthday, 8 years old. The merry-go-round broke down as we went round and round.
And who requested that song
for you?
Oh,
my mother did that. And maybe under the pillow I had a little bit of money. So that was very thoughtful of her.
Can you also recall a special field trip you took as a little girl in Downey area?
Yeah. At one time, maybe when I was 10, 11 years old, I lived with my aunt and uncle, and her husband was a dairy farmer. He was from Holland, so a lot of people from Holland started dairy farms in that area. So maybe I was in the 6th grade, and we had a field trip to Catalina Island. I didn't have very much money with me, but I really enjoyed that field trip. And the Wrigley Mansion was there. I think it still is there.
Yes, it is.
And that was a very good trip.
Can you tell us about the time in school as well that you were the morning radio announcer?
Yeah. Well, that was maybe the same school. We had intercoms at each room, and maybe kind of the announcer. And I guess maybe the teacher asked me if I wanted to do it. Or I thought it was kind of fun. And I remember saying goodbye in several languages.
Nice. And then from grade school in Downey, can you tell us where you went to high school?
Okay, my high school. Oh, well, at that time, Downey had a junior high and a senior high. And the junior high was 7th, 8th, and 9th. And senior high was 10th, 11th, and 12th. Yeah, so I was thinking my older sister was 3 years older. So if I was in the 9th grade, she would have been in the 12th grade. So some of her friends were my good friends also. And she had a very good friend, Claire Marie Bond, who was the head majorette. And I thought she was a good role model, and I thought being a majorette would be fun. So she said she would teach me to be I borrowed a baton from the high school. She was very good teaching me to be a majorette. But then they graduated, and so in the 10th grade, I was selected, and the board or somebody had to approve our uniform and stuff. Our colors were white and maroon. But the head majorette, she wasn't like Sister Lucia's good friend, who was the head. It was more materialistic, and if you were a majorette or a class president, or what else could you be?
cheerleader, class president?
any of those things. They looked up to you. You had to wear special, like you were set apart and higher, and I didn't like that. And not only that, but my oldest brother was finishing college at St. John's in Minnesota. And he was maybe finished with college and wanted to see if God was calling him to be a priest. So I thought it would be great to finish my last 2 years of school at St. Benedict's Academy, St. Joseph, Minnesota. And the men's school was 4 miles apart, St. John. They had a prep school, the high school. So my brother, Bal, we called him Bal, he went to St. John's, and my older brother was studying to be a priest. I think he was in the novitiate then, and I was at St. Ben's Academy, my last 2 years of high school. And I'm so glad I went there because I was really rooted in the Catholic faith and how you live it. And I had very good teachers. And if I'd have a few days off, both sides of my family would want me to come and visit. So on my dad's side, I would visit Marianne.
Your cousin Marianne in Minnesota.
On the farm. And then on my dad's side, mother's side, I would visit Leona. They called her Lee in Cold Spring. I would call them out, and they would pick me up at the bus stop, bus station. And so those were very fruitful years, which I'm so thankful I went there the last 2 years of my high school. And my very good friend from Guatemala, Amalita, her dad was from there locally. And he went to Guatemala and met his wife, a wonderful Catholic Guatemala girl. So she grew up in Guatemala, and there were 2 girls and 2 boys in her. So the 2 girls went to St. Ben's and the 2 boys to St. John's. So we remained the best of friends through the years. And we happened to be married, I think, the same month and same year.
So
Yeah.
Amy Ruff was your good friend from high school at St. Ben's in Minnesota.
Yeah, I had a few other friends, too, who were very good friends. And Melita just died, I think, last year in February. But her daughter, Mary, and I are the best of friends. Yeah, her daughter and I are very close.
Nice.
And our chemistry teacher at St. Ben's told us the summer before, Sister Ortrud, that she went to Ogden, Utah, and they just started a new hospital there. And they started a school of nursing, and they were accredited. And so after I graduated, I waited for my brother Bal a few weeks to get out of school, and we took a train and get off in Ogden, Utah, and got a bus. I had an interview with the School of Nursing, which the nuns owned and operated. The St. Benedict nuns, the same school I went to. I went home, and I was also thinking of going to, in LA, I think they had 2 schools of nursing. I went to both of them. But of course, I ended up going to Ogden, Utah. And that was an experience. We were the first class, and it was a 3-year RN. And when you graduated, you could take the state boards. So I lived there. And you only got 3 weeks off for the whole year. So it was a very good school, and I persevered. I'm glad I did.
Growing up in high school and in college, what was the popular music and dances of the day?
Well, a lot of music, like from Glenn Miller and I remember Amelita, the one from Guatemala. We would learn a dance step, and we would, so happy we learned it. I think I even did it in my sleep. So that was one thing. Oh, one of my very nice experiences in high school, going back, we knew the people in Downey who operated the meat department, and you rented out lockers where, because people didn't have freezers, so you could rent out a locker. And these people, I got to know them and owned and operated. And they had a home in Balboa Island, and they had a young girl, maybe 2 years old. They owned a home there at Balboa Island, and the garage was downstairs and the living quarters upstairs. So I went with her to help take care of her little girl, and she just treated me so wonderfully. Her name is Catherine, and I wanted to go to the dance at the Balboa. They call it the Pavilion or something. I think Freddie Martin. But I was only like 15 years old. So she was like my chaperone.
For the Balboa Pavilion
Yeah.
at Balboa Island?
Yeah, where they held the dance. I think it was Freddie Martin,
Freddie Martin.
or one of the famous orchestra. I thought, gee, she's a wonderful person. She chaperoned me and hired someone else to take care of her daughter. So, yeah, I had so many wonderful people I can be thankful for on my journey of faith. So that's something I really have fond memories of.
When did you learn to drive, and what type of cars do you remember?
Well, the bakery truck, my dad had the panel to deliver. So after he picked up his load in LA, I guess he had breakfast and then delivered the bakery goods to the homes and restaurants. So that's the truck I took to LA for my driving test and the written test. So that's the only driving test I ever took, is in East LA. And I was about 16, 17 at that time. You had to be. And then I learned, my dad could hardly wait till I got my driver's license, because then I could drive the bakery truck. So I learned everything about the bakery truck. In fact, I could take over the business because he educated me in everything. And
who was the first president you voted for?
Eisenhower.
And after you finished nursing school in Ogden, Utah, tell us about moving back to California, and where were you employed? What did you do at that point in your life?
Mm-hmm. Did you want to know when I was queen for a day?
Oh, yes. Queen for a day. Let's rewind.
Okay. So in nurses training, we got 3 weeks off for the whole year. Well, we had our studies and we had our applications, you know, how to give injections, IVs, and all the different treatments. And so after my first year, I entered in September of 1947. And that first summer when I came home, see, we were living also in Lorena, 326 Lorena. And Sister Lucia and I, we both wanted to go to Queen for a day. So my sister wouldn't drive, so I was the driver. And we went to the radio studio. We were in line for Queen for a day. We did get in, and we wrote our wish down. And my wish was a nurse's watch. I remember writing, mine was in constant need of repair. So they had a panel who chose the 4 top ones, and mine was one of them. And then the audience in the radio studio, they had an applause meter. So I got to be that queen for a day. So on the radio, I think Jack Bailey was the host. He had me take his pulse or something. And we went to Dawn the Beachcomber, very lovely restaurant, and I had makeup by Pierce Westmore, who was the main makeup artist for the movies. Oh, and also that night, the Coconut Grove. Well, it isn't there anymore, but I was treated as a queen there for dinner and dancing. But the Queen for a Day, the radio show, provided their chaperone. Oh, and Sister Lucia, or Dolores, didn't go with me to the Coconut. One of her girlfriends drove me. So that was pretty delightful, going there. When I got back to my nursing school, my classmates said, "Why didn't you wish for a washing machine?" Because we had to do our own hand washing, you know. So, and some of my patients heard me on the radio. That was.
Did you
well,
get to show them your new watch?
Yeah. Well, not only that, but I got a nice wardrobe, and Sister Lucia wouldn't tell me what she wished. I bet she wished that I would get the watch.
Oh, nice. And then moving back to Downey after you finished nursing school, now you're back in Southern California. Tell us about your life then. And
Well,
maybe
getting back to the school, my roommate was Betty Battistone, who was from nearby in Roy, Utah. So all those 3 years, she was my roommate. And we decided to work at that hospital, St. Benedict's, for almost a year. And they had a hospital in Linwood called St. Francis, and we were hired there before we left. So
in Linwood, California.
yeah, but we lived in my parents' home. Betty and I did. And so she lived. And the director of nurses arranged for an RN nurse to pick us up. She didn't even have to go out of her way. So I didn't have to buy a car. So we did that for a while. And I wanted to go back and get my degree. Well, I was so happy when I passed the RN, the state boards, You have to have that before you can be an RN. So then, let's see, first I worked at the Leary Clinic, and his name was Dr. Mullen. So I was his personal nurse. And at that time, the doctors had with essential things in their bag. And I remember he had a wonderful wife. She would have homemade soup maybe and something else to drink. And so I was very happy to work for him. And then, so I had an interview at Mount St. Mary's College in LA. And I believe the director of nurses' sister, Rebecca, and we had a talk. And she said I could be hired as a school nurse and I wouldn't have to pay my tuition or board. I would only have to pay for my books. So I thought that was very good. And so I really liked that. I really liked my year there. Oh, and before that, when Betty and I came back to live in my parents' home, we were in the choir, and the name of the church was Our Lady of Perpetual Help. And we kind of started a little social thing called the Perpetualite, and then that was really great. And then we wanted something for single people who were eligible to be married in the Catholic Church. I think Betty left Downey, to go to San Francisco to work in a hospital there. So some of us helped start this with the Catholic Church to have something available to meet other people. And it was through the whole archdiocese, so sometimes we met with other groups, and even in LA, it was really great. They had a 4-point program through your faith and social and athletic, maybe hiking or horseback riding, different things, and cultural. By cultural, we meant seeing the performing arts or a good movie. That's that's one of the definitions I had for culture. So, I was going with one guy, but really we weren't very serious. But we put on a moonlight serenade, a dance. Oh, well, let me say prior to that, when I wasn't working at the hospital, I was working in the donut shop. It was also a restaurant that my parents had. So one time when I was working, this man comes in. I said, "Are you the Francis DeBaets who went to Downey High School?" Because I hadn't seen him in 7 years. He said, yeah, he was helping a friend move. So anyway, at this moonlight dance I was talking to you about before, he came to that, and I guess that's the last time I went out with this other guy. Well, at that time, guys were serious, and I wasn't serious because I was wanting to finish nurses training and earning money. So Francis DeBaets and I were both finished with school earning money, and so then Francis DeBaets started dating me, but we looked at the newspaper, and this story about, who's it by? Anyway, this girl and guy, they were first married, and I wish I could think of the name of it. Some kind of present. Maybe someone can recall. And she sold her hair I don't know if someone can think of it.
Rapunzel.
No,
Little Women,
no.
when she's,
I'll think of the name of it.
and he bought her the combs.
Yeah.
But she no longer had the hair
Yeah.
to put in the beautiful barrette combs.
Yeah.
I know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
what a beautiful story. And we checked the LA Times or something first for our first date. That would have been in September of 1952. And my brother, was he there chaperoning? Well, my very first date in Downey, I heard later that I was the first one to date, because older brother and sister never wanted to date. This is a little tidbit. So in Downey, the Moralta Theater, my younger brother was like a chaperone to make sure my first
On your first date in,
went all right.
in Downey when you were 15, your younger brother was the chaperone.
Oh my.
Where did you go on your first date in Downey when you were 15 and your brother
Oh
chaperoned?
yeah, I don't remember the guy, but I remember them. It was Sunday dinner for a soldier with Ann Baxter. It was in John Hodier. Oh, and my sister Dolores said, always treat the person with respect. We both have to treat each other with respect. So that was her advice to me for everyone. You should treat them that way, right? Especially dating. So then I told you before that they accepted me as the school nurse, and I took the subjects I took weren't even related to nursing.
What were some of those subjects
Oh,
at St.
well,
Mary's?
you took
Mount
a
St.
test
Mary's?
first in English, so I could take world literature and the history of the Americas, psychology, Spanish. I don't know. They had a wonderful swimming pool. I don't know if you took the pool, but I took a full load, I think, 15 and a half units, and I was available if anyone was sick. And my best friend, her name was Marianne Munch. Later on, she became a nun. But I had some good friends from the college, and I was so. Francis DeBaets picked me up. He would drop me off at school every weekend. Sometimes, I guess most of the time we went to Downey. Brought me back to school. Then he went to work at Edwards Air Force Base. And he lived what they call kerosene flat, where the single men live. So that was September when I started. And in January, he proposed to me in the parlor.
Was that in 1953?
Yeah, yeah, January. And I said, well, it was more yes than no. We had to know each other better. And so I had to tell them that and my records were changed. The director of nurses, if I wanted to be a public health nurse, I'd have to go to UCLA. But instead of getting my BSN degree, I got an MRS degree.
Good job.
So I'm very thankful. Well, my whole life, I mean that I had the opportunity to go to school there. So when I entered there, my 3 years of nursing counted as 1 year of college. So I was a sophomore. And my very good friend there too was Barbara Selna. And she was she was gifted, you know, academically and music. So anyway, I finished a year at Mount St. Mary's College.
And you said yes to the proposal.
Well,
so tell
yeah.
us more. When did you get married?
Oh, well, at that time, the Easter Vigil, well, of course, the first Christians had the first East, you know, it began. But it was hard to find a church where they had the Easter Vigil, and we found one in Long Beach. His name was St. Barnabas. So he drove me home to Downey. At that time, we were living in a house on, I think it was sick. It was right next to the donut shop. So Francis DeBaets said, well, Lent is over, and I accepted the marriage proposal, and he gave me a ring, and we had the following day, well, of course, it was Easter Sunday, and there was no marriage preparation available, but he graduated from Loyola in the engineering as a civil engineer, so he had a book there about marriage, and there were questions. So each weekend we would read the questions and answer them. We made a solemn engagement. He made a retreat at the Jesuit retreat house, and I made it the Carmelites in El Hammer retreat house. So we even had to take it separately. So then we were married then, November 21st, 1953, Our Lady of Perpetua Church.
In Downey.
Downey. And then I took my wedding dress. We went up north on the coast.
For
And
your honeymoon?
Yeah, and we went to different missions, and we stopped at the Carmelite Monastery, and the nuns were so happy to see, you know, I got dressed for them in the wedding dress, and my sister Marilyn also was there. She was my
Maid of honor?
maid of honor, and she put on her dress, and so then we were headed north after that. We thought we'd stay at the St. Francis Hotel, but it ended up being Sir Francis. And we went to their dance floor, and because we didn't order alcoholic beverages, they didn't want us to be on the dance floor, but someone told us where to eat. I wrote it down somewhere. We finally found it. And so we had a wonderful time in San Francisco. See. And then we came home, another route, you know, more inland. So I saw the home in Downey, Edwards Air Force Base. And when we came home, the house was in total disarray. There was toilet paper all over, things strewn all over the house, like someone came in at night.
Who would do such a thing?
My brother Bal. Because they had the keys to bring the wedding gifts there, and he thought we would have laughs or something. We had to clean up all this stuff before we could even get to bed.
So your brother Bal toilet papered the inside of your
Yeah,
house?
everything was strung
put
out.
cans
and
all over?
We had a nice fruit bowl. There's vegetables in there, and I thought, how could he do a thing like this? I don't know if Marilyn helped out or not. Well, I don't know if I see him next time. You know, he had a stroke, but wow. I guess you only do that with people you love, huh?
I guess. So you're used to living in Southern California, in Downey. You get married, you come to live in North Edwards in the desert. What did you think of
Oh,
that?
I thought that was horrible. I thought, I want to live in Downey again. I don't want to live in this desert. So Francis DeBaets for some weeks drove me back to Downey. But then we met very good. I joined the choir right away. And I helped start the Altar Society at the base. And so after Paul was born, I guess I went alone to choir practice, but Dad wanted to also come, even though he couldn't sing very well. And when the nursery, I guess you had to be a year older, so he could sing the base nursery while we were at choir practice. So we lived there at Wary Housing at the base for about 4 years. We had very good friends. And I don't know how much time, but this is going to take quite a while. My parents were they left on a trip, maybe this luxury liner to Europe, the SS United States. And so in Las Vegas, they had an empty lot and they built a grocery store at the bottom and 3 apartments on top. So they told their neighbor, Goldie, keep an eye on it. They didn't build, it wasn't a grocery store yet, apparently. And they said, if something seems wrong, to call their daughter Vivian. So I got a call. I guess something with the fire extinguisher. So anyway, it meant I had to drive there. I was about 5 months pregnant with Mary.
With your second child, Mary.
Mary. And so we made arrangements with Mrs. Banks. She was eager to take care of Paul. I was gone. And my neighbor, Ann Rose, was eager to drive with me. They're very good neighbors. And her husband was with the Armored Corps of Engineers. And so we both decided to drive to Las Vegas because I was needed there with one of the renters or something in the apartment. So we drove there, and the town before, still in California, is Baker, I believe. Mm-hmm. And the car didn't work right. So we went in the gas station, and this family heard what went wrong. The car had to be left there for repair. And so they offered to drive us to Las Vegas. And I thought they were trustworthy. I think they had 2 cars, married couple, husband. So they dropped us off in Las Vegas. And this Goldie, so Ann and I stayed, either he had a little apartment or stood. The bottom line is we stayed, might have been a hotel. And that was real fine. And I resolved the problem, whatever it was, with the renter. And we went, and I bought some nice maternity clothes in a nice department store there in Las Vegas. And we decided to go to, and I bought some nice little comfortable kind of dressy shoes. And I went into some cat droppings. I don't know if so I had to clean up my shoes from all that. And we went to a show in Las Vegas. Ann and I did, and we didn't think it was very good, so we left. Oh, so then the car was still in the shop. It wasn't ready. So we took a bus to Barstow, and Barstow to where you could get off at the entrance of Edwards Air Force Base. And Francis DeBaets, my husband, made arrangements for someone to pick us up there. So we got home. And then my husband, Francis DeBaets, hitchhiked to where the car was, picked it up. And then later on he found out they didn't put in the right parts or something was wrong. Oh, God. So that was a little tidbit story about our adventure to Las Vegas.